The first thing I saw was Buddy's blue collar. The second was the paperwork underneath it. For a few seconds, I couldn't understand what I was looking at. My husband's family was laughing somewhere behind me. Someone had turned the music up in the living room. Glasses clinked. Evan's mother was calling for more ice. And I was standing in my own kitchen with my dog's collar in one hand and a document titled Owner Surrender/Transport Authorization in the other. Evan. My voice came out so quietly that he didn't answer. I looked down again. Buddy's name. Our address. A pickup confirmation. My stomach dropped. Evan. This time. He appeared in the kitchen doorway. His smile disappeared the moment he saw what I was holding. That was when I knew. Whatever explanation he was about to give me, he already knew it wouldn't be enough. Where is Buddy? Evan glanced over his shoulder toward the party. Savannah. Not now. I stared at him. Where is my dog? His jaw tightened. Behind him. His sister Sophie walked past carrying a glass of wine. She slowed, gave me the same guarded look she always did, then kept moving. At the time, I thought I understood why. I thought she hated me. I thought this whole disaster had started because of her. I had no idea that within the next 10 minutes, the woman I'd spent 3 years avoiding would walk back into that kitchen and destroy almost everything I believed about my marriage. But to understand why I was ready to blame Sophie, you have to understand what Evan had spent years telling me. When I married Evan Reed 3 years earlier, I knew his younger sister and I weren't going to become best friends. Sophie was 27, blunt, independent, and impossible to read. I was 30, newly married, and trying much too hard to be liked. At our wedding reception, Sophie hugged me and said, "You look beautiful." 2 days later, Evan told me she had complained about how much we spent. We were unpacking gifts when he said it. My sister thinks the wedding was kind of excessive. I stopped folding tissue paper. What? Evan shrugged as though he wished he hadn't brought it up. She thinks we spent too much. She said that? She worries about money. That wasn't her money. I know. He gave me a tired little smile. I'm not saying I agree with her. That sentence became one of Evan's favorites. I'm not saying I agree with her. I'm just telling you what she said. Don't shoot the messenger. A few months later, we took Buddy to his parents' house for Sunday lunch. Buddy was a golden retriever mix I'd adopted 5 years earlier. Long before Evan and I got married, he had been there when my father went through surgery. He had been there when I changed jobs and spent 3 months wondering whether I'd ruined my career. He had slept beside me on the floor of my first apartment because I couldn't afford a real bed frame yet. Buddy wasn't a decoration I'd picked up after marriage. He was family. Sophie barely spoke to me that afternoon. She scratched Buddy behind the ears once, but I didn't think much of it. On the drive home, Evan sighed. What? Nothing. I looked at him. You only sigh like that when it's something. He drummed his fingers against the steering wheel. Sophie asked if you really need to bring Buddy everywhere. I turned toward him. She did. She thinks it's a little much. I felt embarrassed. Then defensive. He wasn't bothering anyone. I know. Again, that careful expression. I'm not saying I agree with her. After that, I stopped bringing Buddy to his parents' house. Then Evan told me Sophie thought I was controlling. That happened after he canceled drinks with her because he and I already had dinner plans. She thinks married couples should still have separate lives. He said, I never told you not to go. I know. So why would she say I'm controlling? She's protective of me. Over time, I stopped asking. It hurt less if I simply accepted that Sophie didn't like me. So I became polite, distant, careful. Whenever she came over, I made conversation for 10 minutes, then found something else to do. If she invited Evan somewhere, I told him to go without me. When his parents hosted holidays, I tried not to sit beside her. The strange thing was that Sophie never actually insulted me to my face. Not once. She never called me controlling, never criticized my wedding, never complained directly about Buddy. But every few months, Evan brought home another comment. Sophie thinks you're sensitive. Sophie said you act like her family isn't good enough for you. Sophie doesn't understand why everything has to be your way. Eventually, I started seeing hostility even when Sophie said nothing. If she was quiet, I thought she was judging me. If she left early, I assumed she didn't want to be around me. If she gave me a short answer, I took it personally. What I didn't know was that Evan was doing exactly the same thing to her. I wouldn't learn that until later. At the time, all I knew was that my husband's sister didn't like me. And then Evan told me she was allergic to my dog. It happened on a Wednesday night. Buddy was lying beside the couch with his head on my foot, while I answered emails on my laptop. Evan came downstairs holding his phone. "We need to talk about Buddy." I looked up immediately. "What happened?" "Sophie's allergies are getting worse." I frowned. "What allergies?" "Dogs." I actually laughed because I thought he was joking. "Sophie isn't allergic to dogs." His expression hardened. "Yes, she is. She's been around Buddy before. She had testing done." "When?" "Recently." I closed my laptop. And apparently it's pretty serious." "How serious?" He hesitated. "She can have breathing problems." I stared at him. Sophie had been in our house dozens of times. Not frequently, because she and I barely spoke anymore. But enough. I had never seen her cough around Buddy, never seen her use an inhaler, never seen her eyes water. Still, allergies could change. I wasn't a doctor, so we'll keep Buddy upstairs when she comes over. Evan rubbed the back of his neck. "That's not really enough." "What do you mean?" "She doesn't feel comfortable being here with him in the house." I waited. Evan didn't say anything. A terrible thought slowly formed. "You want me to send Buddy away whenever Sophie visits?" He sat across from me. "I think we should find him another home." I laughed again. This time there was nothing funny in it. "No. Savannah. No. Can you at least think about it?" "I have thought about it. The answer is no." His face tightened. "He's a dog. And Sophie is my sister. Buddy has lived with me for 5 years. That doesn't make him a person." I felt my entire body go cold. "Don't say that to me. I'm being realistic." "No, you're telling me to throw away a member of my family because your sister suddenly developed an allergy nobody has ever noticed." Evan stood. "Do you hear yourself?" "Perfectly. My sister could have an actual medical emergency. And you're worried about hurting a dog's feelings." I said I'd keep them separated. She shouldn't have to be afraid to come to her brother's house. I folded my arms. "Then we can visit her somewhere else." His eyebrows shot up. "So now Sophie isn't welcome here?" "That is not what I said." "You basically did." "No. Evan, you told me your sister is allergic to Buddy. I'm offering solutions that don't involve permanently getting rid of him." He paced away, then turned back. "This is exactly what Sophie means." My heart sank. "What?" "You always make everything about what you want." There it was again. "Sophie thinks. Sophie says. Sophie feels." I got to my feet. "If your sister has something to say to me about my dog, she can call me herself." Evan's expression changed. Only for a second, but I noticed. "No." I stared at him. "No. She doesn't want drama. Neither do I. That's not how she sees you." That hurt more than I wanted it to. I looked down at Buddy. He thumped his tail once against the floor. "I'm calling my parents tomorrow." Evan frowned. "Why?" "Buddy can stay with them for a few days if Sophie needs to be here this weekend." "That's not solving the problem. It's solving the immediate problem. This isn't temporary." "Savannah." I looked up. "Yes, it is." His mouth flattened. We stared at each other for several seconds. Finally, I said, "You are not giving away my dog." He didn't answer. I should have paid more attention to that silence. The next morning, I called my mother. She agreed immediately. "Of course Buddy can stay here," she said. "Your dad will be thrilled." I smiled for the first time all morning. "I'll bring his food and bed tomorrow." Buddy was supposed to go to my parents' place Saturday morning. The family party at our house was Friday evening. Evan's father, Robert, had turned 61 that week, and we'd already agreed to host a small birthday get-together. After our argument, I wanted to cancel. Evan refused. "My parents will know something's wrong." "Something is wrong." "Savannah." "What?" He lowered his voice. "If we cancel right after Sophie tells me about her allergy, everyone is going to know you're upset about Buddy." "I am upset about Buddy. You don't need to punish my whole family." I stared at him. "How is canceling one dinner punishing anyone?" He shook his head. "You're making this bigger than it needs to be." That sentence made me feel crazy every time he used it. Somehow his choices were always small. My reactions were always enormous. So the party happened. I kept Buddy upstairs in the home office with his bed, water, and a chew toy. I checked on him twice before everyone arrived. Sophie came in with Robert and Diane. "Happy birthday," I told Robert, hugging him. "Thanks for hosting," he said warmly. Diane kissed my cheek. Sophie stood behind them holding a bottle of wine. "Hey, Savannah. Hey." Her smile was tight. Mine probably was too. I watched her carefully. No sneezing, no watery eyes, no hesitation. She walked straight into the house. I glanced at Evan. He avoided looking at me. About 40 minutes later, Sophie wandered into the kitchen while I was cutting cake. She looked toward the ceiling when Buddy barked upstairs. I expected her to tense. Instead, she almost smiled. Then she noticed me watching. Her face closed again. "Need help?" "No, I've got it." "Okay." She walked away. I remember thinking, she really doesn't like me. Now I know she was probably thinking the same thing. An hour into the party, I went upstairs to check Buddy. The office door was open. His bed was empty. First, I assumed Evan had taken him outside. Buddy? Nothing. I checked our bedroom, bathroom, guest room, downstairs, backyard, garage. No Buddy. My heart started pounding. Evan. He was talking to his father. He turned. "What? Where's Buddy?" I thought he was upstairs. "He's not." Evan's eyes flickered away from mine. That tiny movement terrified me. "Where is he?" "I don't know." I walked past him. "Buddy." Everyone began looking. Diane checked the laundry room. Robert went outside. A cousin opened the side gate and walked toward the street. Sophie disappeared completely, which only made me more furious. Of course she did. Her allergy started this. And now my dog was missing. Then I saw the corner of Buddy's dog food bag sticking out beside the kitchen trash. I walked in. His collar was on the counter. Buddy never went anywhere without that collar. Never. My fingers shook as I picked it up. Underneath it was the folder. I read the words once, then again. Owner surrender/transport authorization. There was a pickup time, 4:30 p.m. My knees almost gave out. Evan. He appeared in the doorway. I held up the form. "What is this?" His face went pale. Behind him, his mother stopped talking. Robert turned. "What's going on?" I didn't take my eyes off my husband. "Where is Buddy?" "Savannah, can we talk privately?" "No, please." "No." His jaw flexed. "Don't do this in front of everyone." A laugh burst out of me. "You secretly gave away my dog. And you're worried I'm embarrassing you?" Diane gasped. Robert said sharply, "Evan." Evan raised both hands. "Nobody gave anything away." I slapped the paper against his chest. "Then explain this." He caught it. "I arranged for Buddy to be placed temporarily." "Placed where?" "With a rescue contact." "What rescue?" "A transport service." "Where is he?" "They were going to match him with someone." My vision blurred. "You surrendered my dog. I handled a situation you refused to handle." My mouth fell open. "You had no right. I live here too. He is mine. He lives in our house. Evan, I swear to God, if something happened to him." "Nothing happened." "Then bring him back." He looked away. That was the moment I broke. I shoved his shoulder. "Bring him back." Diane grabbed my arm. "Savannah." I pulled free. "No, don't touch me." Her face crumpled. But I couldn't care. I looked around the kitchen. At his parents. At the relatives. At the empty collar in my hand. Then at Evan. "Why?" His expression hardened. "Because you wouldn't listen. I was taking him to my parents tomorrow. That doesn't fix it." "What needed fixing?" He exhaled sharply, clearly angry that I was making him say it. "Sophie can't be around him." The kitchen went silent. I stared at him. "So you stole my dog because of Sophie?" "I didn't steal him. You waited until I was distracted with your family, took his collar off, and handed him to strangers. You are being dramatic." I stepped toward him. "Where is my dog?" He lowered his voice. This was for Sophie. A voice came from behind him. "No, it wasn't." Evan froze. "So did I." Sophie stood in the kitchen doorway. Her hair was windblown. Her breathing was slightly uneven. Not from an allergy, but like she'd been rushing. A red nylon leash was wrapped around her hand. And standing beside her, tail wagging so hard his entire body moved with it, was Buddy. For 1 second, nobody spoke. Then Buddy saw me. He tore the leash out of Sophie's hand. "Buddy." I dropped to my knees. He crashed into me. licking my face while I wrapped both arms around him. Oh my God. I buried my face against his neck. You're okay. You're okay. I heard Diane start crying. Robert swore under his breath. Evan said, Sophie, what the hell are you doing? I looked up. Sophie wasn't looking at Buddy. She was staring directly at her brother. Her face had gone completely still. Apparently, she said, saving you from committing one of the dumbest mistakes of your life. Evan's eyes narrowed. You need to stay out of this. She gave a short, disbelieving laugh. You told her I'm allergic to dogs? Nobody moved. Sophie pointed at Buddy. I've been sitting in a transport van with that dog for almost an hour.
Esther daher.
What? She looked at me. For the first time in 3 years, there was no coldness in her expression, only anger and confusion, mostly anger. I'm not allergic to dogs. Savannah. My arms tightened around Buddy. I looked at Evan. He said nothing. Sophie stepped farther into the kitchen. I don't know what he told you, but someone from a transport network contacted the shelter where I volunteer because the surrender paperwork looked weird. Diane blinked. You volunteer at a shelter? Sophie ignored her. I recognized Buddy from the intake photo. She looked at Evan again. So I went and got him. Evan's face darkened. You had no right to interfere. Sophie stared at him. Then she laughed. It was a small, ugly sound. No, right? She pointed at me. You told me Savannah didn't want me coming here. I stopped breathing. What? Sophie turned toward me. Her anger shifted into something else. Suspicion. Not of me. Of him. You didn't say that? I slowly stood. No. Evan stepped between us. This is not the time. Sophie looked around him. What about Thanksgiving 2 years ago? My stomach twisted. What about it? He told me you didn't want me staying here.
Esther daher.
I asked him if you wanted the guest room. Sophie's face changed. Evan said sharply, Enough. Neither of us looked at him. Sophie's eyes searched mine. He told me you thought I came over too much. I thought you stopped coming because you couldn't stand me. Her lips parted. For the first time, I saw something frighteningly familiar in her expression. The exact same stunned hurt I felt. Evan moved toward her. Sophie, stop. She took one step back. No. Then she looked at me again. Really looked at me. Like she was seeing me for the first time instead of the woman her brother had described. Buddy pressed against my leg. My hand rested on his head. Sophie glanced at him, then back at me. Her voice was low and steady. Savannah, I don't know what else he's lied to you about. Evan closed his eyes. Sophie continued, but I think we need to start comparing notes. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Evan was the first to move. He stepped toward Sophie and lowered his voice like he was trying to manage an employee who had embarrassed him in front of a client. You're upset. I get it. But you don't know the whole story. Sophie stared at him. I know I'm not allergic to dogs. Robert made a sharp sound under his breath. Diane looked from Sophie to Evan. Evan, what is she talking about? Evan rubbed both hands over his face. Can we not do this right now? I almost laughed. He had secretly surrendered my dog. Lied about his sister having a medical condition. And somehow the problem was still the timing. I kept one hand on Buddy's back. No, we're doing it right now. Savannah, you told me Sophie could have breathing problems if Buddy was in the house. Sophie's eyebrows went up. He said what? I looked at her. He said your allergy had gotten serious. That you'd had testing done. My allergy? Yes, I don't have one. I can see that now. Sophie pointed at Buddy. I volunteer at an animal shelter 3 nights a week. Diane blinked. You what? Sophie's shoulders tightened. I was going to tell you eventually. Robert frowned. For how long? Almost 2 years. Her father stared at her. You're in nursing school full-time. And I'm still passing. That's not the point. Sophie rolled her eyes. This is exactly why I didn't tell you. Then she turned back to Evan. But apparently my secret hobby has been turned into a fake medical condition. So congratulations. Dad, you found out. Robert looked annoyed. But only for a second. Then his eyes shifted to his son. Evan, did you make this up? Evan crossed his arms. I exaggerated. I stared at him. Exaggerated? He looked at me with a tired expression. I knew you wouldn't take it seriously if I just said Sophie was uncomfortable. Sophie let out a short laugh. I wasn't uncomfortable. Evan shot her a look. You've complained about the dog before. When? You have. When? He hesitated. Sophie folded her arms. Go ahead. Give me a date. You've said the hair gets everywhere. That means I have lungs that shut down? I didn't say that. I stepped forward. You absolutely said that. His jaw tightened. I was trying to solve a problem. You created the problem. I wanted the dog out of the house. There it was. Simple. Ugly. Honest. Finally. My throat tightened. You wanted Buddy gone. Evan looked away. Yes. Diane whispered. Oh, Evan. He snapped toward her. Mom. Don't. No, don't what? She asked. React? This has been blown completely out of proportion. I held up Buddy's collar. You took his collar off before handing him to strangers. They were professionals. You lied to me. I knew what you'd say. So you decided my answer didn't matter? His mouth opened. Sophie cut in. And you used me. Evan turned toward her. This isn't about you. Her face actually changed. She looked offended enough to laugh. You told your wife I had a dangerous dog allergy so you could get rid of her dog. And this isn't about me? You're making it worse. No, I'm making you explain it. Robert stepped forward. That seems reasonable. Evan looked around the room as if he couldn't believe nobody was rescuing him. I was trying to avoid a fight. I stared at him. You secretly gave away my dog to avoid a fight? You refused every compromise. I offered to let Buddy stay with my parents. That wasn't permanent. Because I never agreed to permanent. His face hardened. There. That's exactly what I mean. There's no talking to you when it comes to that dog. Sophie shook her head. No, Evan. She gave you an answer. You just didn't like it. He glared at her. You've known one side of this for 5 minutes. Sophie's mouth twisted. Actually, I'm starting to think I've known one side of everything for 3 years. That silenced him. I looked at her. She looked back at me. There was something unnerving about it. For years, I had seen Sophie as cold, judgmental, and vaguely hostile. Now she looked confused. Exactly the way I felt. Diane touched Robert's arm. Maybe everyone should go home. One of Evan's cousins had already disappeared into the living room. Nobody needed to be told twice. Within minutes, coats were being grabbed and goodbye conversations were happening in whispers. Robert didn't leave. Neither did Diane. Sophie stayed where she was. Evan noticed. Dad. Mom. I'll call you tomorrow. Robert's face hardened. I think we should hear the rest. There is no rest. Sophie tilted her head. Great. Then explain Thanksgiving. Evan's shoulders stiffened. I looked between them. What about Thanksgiving? Sophie kept her eyes on her brother. 2 years ago, you told me Savannah didn't want me staying here. My stomach tightened. That's not true. Sophie looked at me. I asked if I could stay after dinner because my apartment building had a water shutoff. I know. Her lips parted. You knew? I asked Evan if you wanted the guest room. Sophie slowly turned toward him. He sighed. Okay, that was a communication problem. No, she said. You told me. Savannah thinks you're here too much already. I felt my face get hot. He told me you had plans with a friend. I spent Thanksgiving night at Megan's apartment because I thought you didn't want me in your house. I thought you didn't want to stay. Sophie gave a humorless laugh. Wow, Diane whispered. Evan. He raised his hands. Everybody is pulling random conversations from years ago and acting like I was running some conspiracy. Sophie looked at me. Did you say I came over too much? No. Did you tell him I was taking advantage of you guys? No. Evan stepped between us again. This is ridiculous. Sophie ignored him. He told me you said I showed up for free food because I couldn't afford to eat out.
I stared daher.
What? Her eyes turned glassy, but her voice stayed sharp. That's why I stopped coming over after class. I felt sick. I remembered that period. For months, Sophie had barely visited. I had told Evan I thought she was avoiding me. His answer had been immediate. She probably is. I looked at him. You told me she stopped coming because she didn't like being around me. Evan shook his head. I don't remember saying that. Yes, you do. Savannah, you're emotional. Sophie's head snapped toward him. Don't. He frowned. Don't what? Do that thing where you make her sound unstable because she remembers something you wish she didn't. I stared at Sophie. She noticed. What? Nothing. No. Say it. I swallowed. He tells me you're dramatic. Her face went still. He tells me that about you. I almost smiled. Except nothing was funny. Diane lowered herself into a chair. Oh my God. Robert rubbed his jaw. How long has this been going on? Evan snapped. Nothing has been going on. Sophie turned on him. You made both of us think the other one hated us. I didn't make you do anything. You told me she thought I was trashy because I wasn't making much money. I flinched. I never said that. I know that now. Sophie, I didn't even know what you made. I know that now too. Evan dragged a hand through his hair. You two already didn't get along. We never had a fight. I said. He stopped. That realization hit me only as I said it. I looked at Sophie. Have we ever actually had a fight? She blinked. No. Have I ever told you not to come here? No. Have you ever told me you hated Buddy? No. Have you ever told me I was controlling? No. The room went quiet again. 3 years. 3 years of tension. 3 years of shortened visits. Careful smiles. Awkward holidays. And resentment. And I couldn't name one actual argument between us. Everything had passed through Evan. He stepped toward me. Savannah, this is getting out of hand. I backed away. Don't touch me. His face hardened. So what? Now you're taking her side? Sophie laughed. My side? You know what I mean. No, I don't. Please explain which side I'm on. The side where I'm not allergic to dogs? Robert pointed toward the hallway. Evan, stop. My husband stared at his father. For the first time since I had known him, he looked less angry than cornered. That should have satisfied me. It didn't. I felt numb. Because if these were lies I could prove within 20 minutes, what about the ones I couldn't? I picked up Buddy's food bag. I'm taking him to my parents' house. Evan stared at me. You're leaving? For tonight. This is our home. And you had my dog removed from it without telling me. I said I was sorry. You didn't. His mouth opened, then closed. I grabbed my purse. Diane stood. Savannah. Honey. I stopped. Normally, hearing her call me honey would have irritated me. Evan had told me more than once that Diane thought I was too distant, too independent, too unwilling to become part of the family. Now I didn't even know if she had ever said those things. I looked at her. Did you ever say I wasn't family because I kept my last name at work? Diane's eyes widened. What? Evan shut his eyes. That was answer enough. I laughed once. Sounded horrible. Diane stepped toward me. I never said that. I nodded slowly. Okay, Savannah, I can't do this tonight. Nobody tried to stop me after that. Buddy jumped into the passenger side of my SUV. I drove to my parents' house with both hands locked around the wheel. My mother opened the door before I even knocked. She looked at Buddy, then at my face. What happened? I burst into tears. Not because Buddy was gone. He wasn't. He was right beside me, tail thumping against my leg. I cried because for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't sure which memories belonged to me and which ones Evan had written for me. I slept badly. Around 11 the next morning, my phone buzzed. I expected Evan. Instead, it was Sophie. Can we talk without him there? I stared at the message for almost a minute. Then I typed, yes, we met at a coffee shop near South Park. Sophie was already sitting when I arrived. She looked exhausted. So, she said when I sat down, this is weird. That's one word for it. She pushed a coffee toward me. I didn't know what you drink. Black is fine. Good, I guess. We sat in silence. Finally, Sophie took a breath. I thought you hated me. I thought you hated me too. She shook her head. This is insane. Tell me everything he told you. Her eyes narrowed. You first. I almost laughed. That sounds fair. I pulled out my phone. I had spent half the night going through old messages. Sophie thinks our wedding was embarrassingly expensive. Her eyebrows went up. I said Evan was an idiot for putting half the reception on a credit card.
Hister daher.
That's not the same thing. No. I looked back at my notes. Sophie thinks you bring Buddy everywhere because you need attention. Her mouth fell open. What? He told me that after Sunday lunch at your parents' place. I said Buddy shed all over Dad's black pants. That's it? That's it. I looked down again. Sophie thinks I control Evan. She leaned back. He told me you complained whenever he saw his family. I never did. I know. No. I mean, I literally encouraged him to see you. Sophie pressed her lips together. He told me you hated when I called him. My hands curled around the coffee cup. For the next hour, we took apart 3 years. one lie at a time. Then Sophie went quiet. There's one more. I looked up. She stared at the table. When I started my second year of nursing school, my financial aid got delayed. Okay, I needed $2,000 for tuition, just for about 6 weeks. I waited. I asked Evan if he could lend it to me. Something in her expression made my stomach twist. He said no. I swallowed. Sophie looked at me. He said you wouldn't let him. I felt cold. I didn't know. Her eyes filled. I know that now. I swear to you. Sophie, he never told me. I believe you. That somehow made it worse. She looked away and laughed bitterly. I spent 2 years thinking you'd rather let me drop out than lend me money. I would never do that. I know. I sat back. My chest hurt. All that anger I had carried toward her suddenly had nowhere to go. Sophie wiped quickly under one eye. Then she cleared her throat. There's something else I want to ask you. What? Last October. Your dad's 60th birthday. I froze. What about it? You left the party early, right? I didn't leave early. Evan never came. Sophie frowned. He told us you both went. No. My grip tightened around the cup. He said your mom got sick. Sophie stared at me. What? He said Diane got dizzy and needed him. Her face slowly changed. Savannah. What? My mom was in Asheville that weekend. I stopped breathing. She went with Aunt Carol. They left Friday morning. No. They did. No. Evan told me he spent half the night with her. Sophie shook her head. He didn't. I remembered that night. Evan coming home after 1 in the morning. The smell of whiskey on him. His irritated expression when I asked questions. Dad asked me to meet someone after Mom fell asleep. I had believed that too. Sophie leaned forward. Where was Evan that night?
Hij steert daher.
I don't know. For the first time since Buddy disappeared. Fear replaced anger. I pulled out my phone, opened my calendar. Then I started scrolling. My father's birthday. A canceled marriage counseling appointment. A Christmas dinner Evan missed. The night he came home smelling like bourbon and said Robert had asked him to meet a contractor. One excuse after another. Mom. Dad. Sophie. Family emergency. My thumb stopped moving. Sophie watched my face. What is it? I looked at the screen, then at her. I think Buddy was just the first lie we caught. And suddenly I understood something much worse. If Evan had been willing to invent an illness to get rid of my dog, there was no reason to believe that was the biggest lie he had told me. It might only have been the easiest one to prove. I spent the next 2 days asking questions I should have asked years ago. Not because I was stupid. Not because I had ignored obvious signs. Because when the person sleeping beside you says, "My mom needs me," you don't usually call his mother to verify it. At least, I never had. That was the genius of Evan's lies. They were never dramatic enough to investigate. They sounded ordinary, responsible, even. Family emergencies. A sister who needed help. A father who needed a favor. A mother who wasn't feeling well. Things a good husband and son would naturally handle. By Monday morning, I had a list. My father's 60th birthday was at the top. Call Diane first. She answered on the 3rd ring. Savannah? Her voice was cautious. Mine probably was too. Hi. There was a pause. How are you? I don't know. I understand. I stared at the notebook on my parents' kitchen table. Can I ask you something? Of course. Last October, the weekend of my dad's birthday. Were you sick? Silence. Then. No. Were you dizzy? No. Did Evan take you to urgent care? What? My stomach tightened even though Sophie had already told me the answer. He said you almost fainted. Diane sounded horrified. Savannah. I was in Asheville with Carol. I closed my eyes. Right. Why would he tell you that? I'm trying to figure that out. Diane went quiet. Then she asked softly, "Did he miss your father's birthday because of me?" Yes. Oh, honey. I hated how much that hurt. My father had spent half that night pretending not to be disappointed. He had checked the restaurant door 3 times. Finally, while we were cutting his cake, he'd leaned toward me and said, "Tell Evan I hope his mom feels better." And I had actually texted Evan. "Dad says he hopes your mom is okay." Evan had replied, "Tell him thank you. I hate missing tonight." I still had the message. I stared at it until the words blurred. Diane's voice brought me back. Savannah? I'm here.
I'm sorry.
You didn't do anything. That almost makes it worse. I understood what she meant. I called Robert next. I felt ridiculous saying it out loud. Did you ask Evan to meet a contractor late at night last October? Robert was silent for a moment. What contractor? He said after Diane went to sleep. You needed him to meet someone. At midnight? Almost. Robert gave a short, angry laugh. No. My fingers tightened around my pen. Did you ever have him handle client meetings for your company? Absolutely not. Never? Savannah. Evan sells insurance. I run a building supply business. What would I send him to negotiate? I wrote one word beside that date. Lie. Then another. And another. By Tuesday afternoon, my notebook was beginning to look less like a marriage and more like an investigation. There was the Saturday Evan had missed dinner with my parents because Sophie supposedly had a panic attack over nursing school. I called Sophie. I was in clinicals that whole weekend. She said, "You're sure?" Savannah. I worked a 12-hour shift at Atrium Health. I remember because I thought my feet were going to fall off. Did you call Evan? No. Did you need him? No. I wrote. Lie. There was our marriage counseling appointment 6 months earlier. I had begged Evan to go after we'd spent 3 weeks arguing about money and how rarely we talked without one of us getting defensive. He finally agreed. Then, 40 minutes before the session, he canceled. Sophie needs me. That was the text. I called her again. You needed him that night? No. Were you having trouble with school? I'm always having trouble with school. That's nursing school. Despite everything. I laughed. Then she added, I wasn't even in Charlotte that night. Megan and I drove to Raleigh. Another lie. There was Christmas dinner with my aunt. A Saturday morning volunteer event. A weekend trip Evan had backed out of the night before. Every time, someone in his family had supposedly needed him. Every time, the person had no idea. And then there were the smaller things. Those were somehow worse. I remembered wanting to spend Christmas Eve with my parents 2 years ago. Evan had sighed and said, Dad thinks married couples need to start their own traditions. I had felt selfish, so I canceled dinner with my parents. When I called Robert and asked about it, he sounded confused. I don't care where married people eat Christmas dinner. I almost laughed. Another time, I'd wanted to replace our old mattress. Evan said Diane thought we were spending too much money. Diane nearly choked when I asked. I told him the mattress at your house was killing my back, and you should buy a new one. I sat there with the phone against my ear, unable to speak. It was almost impressive. My husband could turn anyone into an argument, even people who agreed with me. By Wednesday, anger had replaced confusion. I drove home after work without telling Evan I was coming. Buddy was still staying with my parents. I hadn't trusted Evan enough to bring him back. That sentence alone should have told me everything I needed to know. Evan was in the kitchen when I walked in. He looked up from his phone. You're finally home. I set my purse on the counter. I still live here. Could have fooled me. I ignored that. He watched me take out the notebook. His expression changed. What's that? A list. A list of what? Your lies. He laughed. Not because it was funny, because he was nervous. Seriously? Yes. Savannah. This has gone way too far. I opened the notebook. October 12. My dad's birthday. His jaw tightened. I already told you. You told me your mom was sick. She wasn't. You told me your dad needed you to meet a contractor. He looked away. He did. No, he didn't. Evan stared at me. I continued. February 9th. Marriage counseling. His expression became colder. Sophie needed you. I know. She didn't. He crossed his arms. So you're calling my family and interrogating them now? No. I'm asking them whether they actually said and did the things you told me they did. You're dragging everyone into our marriage. I almost laughed. You dragged them into our marriage. That is not the same thing. How? He didn't answer. I flipped a page. Christmas Eve. Your dad supposedly thought we shouldn't go to my parents' house. Maybe I remembered wrong. New mattress. Your mom supposedly thought I was irresponsible with money. I don't remember that. You don't remember anything that makes you look bad. His eyes narrowed. I'm not doing this. He tried to walk past me. I stepped in front of him. Yes, you are. Move. No. His face changed. I had seen Evan annoyed. I had seen him sulk. I had seen him become distant. But actual anger was rare. He preferred making other people angry. Then he could stand back and call them unreasonable. Savannah. He said quietly. Get out of my way. I held his gaze. Where were you the night of my dad's birthday? He said nothing. Where were you? I went out. With who? People from work. My stomach dropped. Who? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. He rubbed his forehead. Madison was there. I stared at him. Madison Blake. One of the account managers from his office. I had met her twice. She was married. Or at least she had been the last time I checked. Just Madison? No. Who else? A couple people. Names. His mouth tightened. Why? Because you told me your mother almost fainted while you were actually drinking with a woman from work. She's a coworker. Then why lie? He threw up his hands. Because I knew you'd do this. I felt something inside me go still. Do what? Turn it into something. You lied before I reacted. Because I know you. No. Evan. You decided what my reaction would be. Then used that imaginary reaction to justify lying. His face flushed. It was drinks. So say, I'm getting drinks with coworkers. You would have been pissed that I skipped your dad's birthday. Yes. He stared at me. I took a step closer. Yes. I would have been angry. Because you had promised to come. Exactly. That doesn't give you permission to invent a medical emergency. You make everything impossible. There it was. I actually smiled. He noticed. What? You finally ran out of relatives. His brows pulled together. What is that supposed to mean? It means your mom isn't here to blame. Sophie isn't here. Your dad isn't here. There's nobody left. That's ridiculous. No. What's ridiculous is that I've been married to you for 3 years, and I'm only now realizing you've barely told me what you actually want. He scoffed. That doesn't even make sense. It makes perfect sense. I stepped toward the counter. You didn't want to go to my dad's birthday. He looked away. You didn't want marriage counseling. Silence. You didn't want Christmas Eve with my parents. His jaw moved. You didn't want to lend Sophie money. That's different. And you didn't want Buddy. His eyes snapped back to mine. There. That one landed. I closed the notebook. Say it. He stared at me. Say what? That you wanted Buddy gone. We already talked about this. No. We talked about Sophie's fake allergy. Savannah. Say it without using your sister's name. He exhaled. This is stupid. Then it should be easy. He didn't speak. I waited. Finally he said. Fine. I wanted the dog gone. The words hurt more than I expected. Not because I didn't know. Because hearing the truth made every lie around it uglier. Why? He sheds everywhere. I said nothing. He makes the house smell. Still nothing. We can't travel without arranging boarding. I stared at him. He kept going. You spend hundreds of dollars every year at the vet. He's a dog. He needs medical care. I know that. Apparently you resent it. I resent how much our life revolves around him. My throat tightened. You proposed to me with the ring on his collar. Evan looked away. That was different. How? We weren't married yet. I almost laughed. So he was cute when he helped you propose, but inconvenient once I was your wife? That's not fair. No. Fair would have been you telling me before we got married that you didn't want to live with my dog. I thought I could deal with it. And then I couldn't. I stared at him. The answer was so simple. That was what made it devastating. I spoke slowly. So instead of saying that, you made me think Sophie wanted him gone. I knew you wouldn't listen. I would have listened. You wouldn't have agreed. I froze. He realized it too late. That, I said, is not the same thing. He sighed. You know what I mean? No. I finally know exactly what you mean. I could feel my heart beating hard against my ribs. You don't lie because people won't listen. He frowned. You lie because they might say no. His mouth opened. I kept going. If the answer might not be the one you want, you just change the question. Savannah, stop making me sound like some kind of psychopath. I didn't say that. You're acting like I manipulated everyone. You did. No, I tried to keep the peace. With lies. To avoid fights. You caused fights. I didn't force you and Sophie to hate each other. You fed us reasons to. You were already difficult with her. I laughed. See, there it is again. What? Still my fault. He looked exhausted now. I didn't care. You told me she thought I was controlling. You told her I thought she was a mooch. You told me she hated my dog. You told her I didn't want her here. You two are adults. You made your own choices. For 1 second, I couldn't speak. Then I said quietly, That might be the worst thing you've said yet. His expression shifted. Savannah. No. Picked up my purse. He stepped toward me. Where are you going? Back to my parents. For how long? I don't know. So this is it. You're leaving me because of Buddy? I stopped at the doorway. No. His face hardened. You keep saying that. But this started with the dog. This started long before Buddy. That's convenient. I turned back. You know what Buddy did? Evan stared at me. He made your lie easy to prove. He said nothing. That's all. I left before he could answer. Sophie called me that night. I was sitting on my parents' back steps while Buddy chased a tennis ball my father kept throwing too far. How bad was it? She asked. He admitted it. The allergy. No. Buddy. She went quiet. He just wanted him gone? Yes. Wow. I laughed bitterly. That's becoming my favorite word. Did he apologize? Not really. Of course not. I rubbed my forehead. He thinks he lies because everyone around him is difficult. Sophie sighed. He's always hated being the bad guy. I looked out at Buddy. What do you mean? When we were kids, if he didn't want to do something, he'd make it someone else's decision. Like what? If his friends wanted to go somewhere he didn't like, he'd say Mom wouldn't let him. I said nothing. If Dad asked why he hadn't done a chore, Evan would say I needed help with homework. She gave a humorless laugh. I used to think he was just conflict avoidant. So did I. No. Her voice hardened. Conflict avoidant people walk away from conflict. Evan redirects it. That sentence stayed with me. Sophie continued. He doesn't want people angry at him, so he gives them somebody else to be angry at. I thought about every argument I'd ever had with him. How many ended with me resenting Sophie, Diane, Robert, my own parents? How many times had Evan left the room while somebody else carried the blame? I think we need everyone together, Sophie said. My stomach tightened. No, Savannah. I'm not sitting through some family intervention where he convinces everybody I'm overreacting. That's not what I mean. It's exactly what will happen. No. Her voice became firm. This time, he doesn't get to explain anybody to anybody else. I looked down. What are you suggesting? Mom, Dad, you, me, Evan. That sounds like hell. Probably. Despite myself. I smiled. Sophie added. But every lie works because he keeps people separate. I stopped smiling. She was right. He tells you what I said. He tells me what you said. He tells Mom what you supposedly want. He tells Dad what somebody supposedly thinks. And nobody checks. Exactly. I watched Buddy drop the tennis ball at my father's feet. Dad scratched his head before throwing it again. Sophie lowered her voice. No more messengers. I didn't answer immediately. Then I said, okay. She exhaled. I'll talk to Dad. Why him? Because when my father realizes someone has been putting words in his mouth for years, trust me, nobody needs to convince him to show up. The next morning, Robert called me himself. His voice was unusually serious. Sophie told me what you found. Some of it. I have a question. Okay, how many things has Evan claimed I said? I looked at my notebook. I don't know. He was silent for several seconds. Then he said, I'd like to find out. My stomach twisted. Robert, I don't want this becoming everyone versus Evan. Neither do I. Then what do you want? I want my son to sit in a room with the people whose names he's been using and tell us which words were actually ours. I closed my eyes. Robert continued. No more Dad thinks. No more Mom said. No more Sophie feels. His voice hardened. If Evan has something to say, he can finally say it as himself. And for the first time since Buddy disappeared, I realized Evan was about to face the one situation he had spent years avoiding. A room full of people where every person he had ever used as a shield would be sitting close enough to answer for themselves. Evan knew something was wrong the second he walked into his parents' house and saw me sitting beside Sophie. He stopped just inside the doorway. His eyes moved from me to his mother, then to Robert. What is this? Nobody answered immediately. That made him more nervous than yelling would have. He gave a short laugh and dropped his keys onto the table. Seriously? Robert pointed to an empty chair. Sit down. Evan frowned. I'm not 12. Then act like you're not 12. Diane flinched. Sophie looked down. But I caught the corner of her mouth move. Evan noticed too. Oh, great. So everybody's already picked a side. I haven't picked a side, Robert said. I'm trying to figure out how many conversations I apparently had without knowing about them. Evan looked at me. You did this. I almost answered. Then I stopped myself. That was exactly how he worked. One uncomfortable second, and somehow I was already the problem. Robert spoke before I could. No, I called you. Evan's eyes shifted toward his father. Why? Because Savannah says you've been telling people I said things I never said. Evan exhaled loudly. We're really doing this? Sophie folded her arms. Yes. Over Buddy? No, I said. He looked at me. This started because of Buddy. No, Buddy is how we caught you. His face tightened. Diane spoke quietly. Evan, sit down. Something about his mother's voice finally made him listen. He sat. Not comfortably. He leaned forward with his elbows on his knees, already looking like a man waiting for everyone else to become reasonable. Robert started. I'm going to ask questions. I'd appreciate actual answers. Dad, did you tell Savannah I thought her parents were too dependent on her? Evan blinked. What? That's not complicated. I don't remember. Robert's jaw tightened. Apparently I said married couples shouldn't spend every holiday with their parents. Evan rubbed his forehead. You probably said something like that. No, you talk about boundaries all the time. That is not an answer. Evan looked away. Robert continued. Did you tell Savannah I wanted you to meet a contractor the night of her father's birthday? Silence. Evan, I told her I had something for work. No, you used my name. Evan leaned back. So what? I didn't want to go to a birthday dinner. Diane stared at him. Then why didn't you say that? Because she would have gotten upset. I almost laughed. There it was again. Robert's eyebrows lifted. So your solution was to make me responsible? I wasn't making you responsible. You told your wife I needed you. It was an excuse. Robert's expression went cold. With my name on it. Evan looked irritated now. Okay, fine. That was wrong. Sophie let out a breath. One down. He glared at her. Don't. She smiled without humor. Oh, we have a lot more. Diane raised one hand. My turn. Evan's face changed slightly. His mother rarely confronted him directly. She looked at me first. Then at her son. Did you tell Savannah I thought she spent too much money on Buddy? Evan shifted in his chair. Mom, you've complained about vet costs. No, you said dental cleaning for a dog sounded expensive. I said everything sounds expensive now. Sophie muttered. That's true. Diane ignored her. I did not tell you Savannah was irresponsible. Evan shrugged. I may have interpreted it that way. I stared at him. You interpreted your mother saying things are expensive as her wanting me to stop taking my dog to the vet? He turned to me. I already admitted I had issues with the dog. That isn't the point. You keep saying that. Because you keep pretending one confession erases 20 lies. He looked at the ceiling. This is exactly what I knew would happen. Sophie laughed. What? Accountability? Pylon. No. A pylon is when people come at you for the same thing. We all have different things. That shut him up. Sophie leaned forward. My tuition. His eyes hardened. What about it? You told me Savannah wouldn't let you lend me money. I said we couldn't afford it. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. She grabbed her phone. His face changed immediately. Sophie unlocked it. I still have the text. Evan stared at her. She read it aloud. Savannah isn't comfortable lending money to family.
I'm sorry.
My hands are tied. The room went silent. My throat tightened even though I already knew. Diane's face fell. Sophie. She shook her head. No. Let him answer. Evan looked at me. We were trying to save money. I stared at him. You never told me, she asked. We had expenses. That's not what you told her. I knew you wouldn't want to lend $2,000. You didn't ask. I know you. That phrase. Again. I leaned forward. No, you don't. His eyebrows pulled together. You know a version of me that makes your decisions easier. That doesn't even mean anything. It means every time you wanted something, you invented my answer before I got to give one. He scoffed. You think you would have said yes? Yes. Sophie's face tightened. I continued. She was in school. She needed the money for 6 weeks. We had it. Evan shook his head. That's easy to say now. I stared at him. Do you hear yourself? He looked away. Sophie's voice cracked slightly. I almost dropped a clinical rotation. Evan glanced at her. You didn't. That's your defense? You figured it out. I picked up weekend shifts. I sold my laptop. Megan lent me $800. Diane covered her mouth. Robert's expression hardened. Sophie's eyes were wet now, but she refused to look away. And the whole time I thought Savannah knew. I was trying to keep money from becoming a family problem. You made it a family problem. Her voice rose. You made me hate her. I didn't make you hate anybody. You told me she thought I was a mooch. You were asking us for money. Once. Evan stood. Robert immediately said, "Sit down. I'm done with this." "No, you're not. I'm 33 years old. Dad." "Then you're old enough to answer your sister." Evan stared at him. I watched his face. For the first time, nobody was helping him escape. Nobody was explaining what he really meant. Nobody was telling the angry person to calm down. Diane spoke next. Her voice was much quieter. That made it worse. "Did Savannah actually avoid me?" Evan froze. I turned toward her. She looked hurt rather than angry. "For 2 years. She continued. "Every time I asked whether Savannah wanted to get lunch, you said she was busy." Evan rubbed his jaw. "She usually was." "No. Sometimes you told me she wanted space. She likes space." I stared at him. "You never asked me." He looked at me. "You never seemed excited to see my family. Because you kept telling me they didn't like me." Diane's eyes filled. "What did he tell you?" I swallowed. "That you thought I was cold." She shook her head. "That you thought I looked down on Sophie." "No. That you were offended I still use Savannah Bennett professionally instead of Reed." Diane stared at her son. "I never cared about that." "I know." My voice broke slightly. "I know now." She looked down at her hands. "I thought you didn't want me around. I thought you tolerated me because I married Evan." Her eyes filled completely. "For God's sake." Evan stood again. "This is getting ridiculous." Diane looked up sharply. "No." He stopped. She wiped under one eye. "No. Evan, what's ridiculous is that I spent 2 years wondering what I did to your wife." His face softened. "Mom, don't." I had never heard her say that to him. She shook her head. "You told me Savannah preferred her own family." "She does. She has parents. Of course she loves them." "I didn't mean." "You always don't mean it." That landed harder than shouting. Robert stood slowly. "Here's what I want to know." Evan looked tired now. "What?" His father faced him. "How many times have you used my name to say something you were too scared to say yourself?" Evan's face changed. "Nobody was scared." "Then what do you call it?" "I was avoiding unnecessary conflict." Robert laughed once. "You created conflict." "I was trying to keep everybody happy." "No, you were trying to keep everybody from being mad at you." Evan went silent. Sophie looked at her father, then back at Evan. "That's it." He frowned. "What?" "That's what you've always done." "Oh, please. When we were kids, you told your friend's mom wouldn't let you go places you didn't want to go." Evan rolled his eyes. "We were kids. When Dad got mad about chores, you said you were helping me." "Sophie, when you didn't want to visit Grandma, you told her Dad made you work." Robert's eyes narrowed. "What?" Sophie almost smiled. "Sorry. Apparently we're opening the whole archive." Evan snapped. "You've been waiting your entire life for this, haven't you?" Her smile vanished. "For what?" "To turn everyone against me." Sophie stared at him. Then she laughed in disbelief. "You still don't get it." "I get it perfectly." "No. You think because everybody is angry at you, somebody must have organized it." She pointed to herself. "You lied to me." Then Diane. "You lied to Mom." Robert. "You lied using Dad." Finally me. "And you lied to your wife." Her voice lowered. "You didn't need anyone to turn us against you. You handled that yourself." Evan looked at me. His expression shifted. That old softer look appeared. The one that usually came right before I began questioning whether I was being too harsh. "Savannah." I said nothing. "We need to talk privately." "No. This is our marriage. You made our marriage a group project years ago." His mouth tightened. "That's not fair." "Neither was blaming your sister for wanting to get rid of Buddy." He lowered his voice. "I admitted that. You admitted it after you got caught. What else do you want?" The question stunned me. Not because I didn't have an answer. Because he genuinely sounded like honesty was a bill he had already paid. I wanted a husband who told me the truth before he had no other option. His face hardened again. "I've made mistakes. This isn't one mistake." I said mistakes. You built our marriage around them. That's dramatic. Sophie muttered. There it is. He ignored her. I looked at him. What happened the night of my dad's birthday? He sighed. We already discussed this. No, you said Madison was there. Diane frowned. Who's Madison? A coworker. Evan said quickly. I kept my eyes on him. Were other people there? Yes. Who? He hesitated. That was enough. Evan. Savannah. Nothing happened. That wasn't my question. It was just drinks. With who? His jaw flexed. Madison was having a bad week. I felt my stomach drop. So it was just you and her. He looked away. Robert swore under his breath. Evan immediately said, nothing happened. I believed him. Strangely, I did. That wasn't even the worst part. Then why lie? He threw up his hands. Because I knew what this would look like. To me? Yes. So again, you decided I might be upset and that gave you permission to lie. It wasn't permission. What was it? He had no answer. I laughed quietly. You don't even understand what you're admitting. I didn't cheat on you. I didn't say you did. Then what do you want me to say? The truth. I am telling you the truth. Now. He stopped. I shook my head. Always now. His expression faltered. After Sophie brings Buddy back. Truth. I counted on my fingers. After I call your mother. Truth. After your dad denies your story. Truth. After your sister shows me the text. Truth. I lowered my hand. You tell the truth when lying becomes harder. Nobody spoke. Evan looked around the room, then back at me. His anger finally gave way to panic. Okay, he breathed out. Okay, I screwed up. I said nothing. I hate conflict. Robert's mouth tightened. Evan kept going. I panic when people are disappointed in me. Sophie looked unimpressed. I know it's not an excuse. For once, he had chosen the right phrase. But it was too late. I can go to counseling. I stared at him. We can go. I asked you 6 months ago. I know. You used Sophie to get out of it. I know. You told me she was having a panic attack. I know. Sophie's face twisted. Still love being included. Evan ignored her. He stepped toward me. I'll fix it. I backed away. His face fell. Savannah, I don't know if this can be fixed. Yes, it can. You don't know that. We're married. That's not an argument. We made vows. I almost couldn't believe it. You're going to bring up vows? His eyes flashed. I'm trying here. No, you're losing control. That's not fair. You keep saying that like fairness is the issue. He paced once, then turned. So what? You're just done? I looked at him. I don't know. His face tightened. All of this because I wanted the dog gone? Something inside me finally broke cleanly. Not shattered. Broke free. I stared at him. No. He laughed bitterly. Come on. Savannah. If Buddy hadn't disappeared, none of this would be happening. That's true. He threw out one hand as though he'd won. Exactly. No. I stood. You still don't understand. He stared at me. Buddy didn't destroy our marriage. The room went quiet. I felt every eye on me. But for once I didn't care. I looked only at my husband. Buddy just wouldn't lie for you. His face went blank. I continued. He couldn't tell me Sophie wanted him gone. He couldn't tell Sophie I hated her. He couldn't tell your mother I wanted space. He couldn't tell your father he needed you somewhere. My throat tightened. So when you tried to remove him, you left paperwork. Evan looked down. And paperwork doesn't care about keeping you happy. Nobody moved. I reached for my wedding ring. Evan saw. His face changed immediately. Savannah. I pulled it off. Don't. Please. For 3 years. I had thought removing that ring would feel dramatic. It didn't. It felt quiet. I set it on the table. Diane gasped softly. Evan stared at it. You're seriously doing this? I'm done being the person you blame for choices you're too afraid to own. Savannah, don't make a decision tonight. I almost smiled. You made a decision about Buddy in one afternoon. His face went pale. That's different. It always is when you're the one making it. Picked up my purse. He moved toward me. Robert stepped between us. Let her go. Evan stared at his father. You're helping her leave me? No. Robert's voice was hard. I'm refusing to help you stop her. That was different. For Evan, I think that was terrifying. No one was translating. No one was fixing. No one was taking responsibility for him. I walked toward the door. Savannah. Diane's voice stopped me. I turned. She came toward me slowly. I need to say something. I waited. Her eyes were wet.
I'm sorry.
You didn't know. I could have asked. So could I. That was the painful truth. She looked at me. I thought you didn't like us. My eyes burned. I thought you didn't like me. Diane gave a broken little laugh. Then she hugged me. For 3 years, I had stiffened whenever my mother-in-law touched me because I thought every kind gesture hid a criticism she would later give Evan. This time, I hugged her back. Over her shoulder, I saw Sophie. She wiped her cheek and immediately pretended she hadn't. Robert stood beside his son. Evan looked completely alone. For once. Not because anyone had abandoned him, because every person he had placed between himself and the truth had finally stepped aside. I drove back to my parents' house. Buddy met me at the door. He jumped up, putting his front paws against my stomach. Hey, Buddy. I sank onto the floor and wrapped my arms around him. My father appeared in the hallway. He saw my face. Then he looked at my bare left hand. He didn't ask whether I was sure. He didn't tell me marriage was hard. He didn't say Evan deserved another chance. He simply sat beside me. You need anything? I rested my cheek against Buddy's head. A lawyer. Dad nodded. Okay, that was it. No lecture. No messenger. No one telling me what someone else supposedly thought. For the first time in years, an answer could simply be an answer. The next morning, Evan sent me 17 messages. The first said,
I'm sorry.
The fourth said, you're overreacting. The ninth said, Sophie poisoned you against me. The 13th said, we need counseling. The 17th said, please come home. I read them in order. Then I laughed. Even his apology couldn't survive an hour without finding somebody else to blame. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my laptop. I searched for divorce attorneys in Charlotte. Buddy rested his chin on my knee. And for the first time since I married Evan, I made a decision without wondering which member of his family he would say disagreed with me. Evan apologized for 4 days. On the 5th, he started blaming me. I should have expected it. His first messages were soft.
I'm sorry.
I know I hurt you. I understand why you're angry. Then came, can we at least talk before you throw away 3 years? By the second day, marriage is supposed to survive mistakes. By the third, Sophie has always resented me. You know that, right? And by Friday morning, you're letting one bad week destroy our marriage. I read that message twice. Then I took a screenshot and sent it to my attorney. Her name was Rachel Donnelly, 45, divorced herself, and completely unimpressed by Evan. At our first meeting, she listened while I explained the house, our accounts, the marriage, Buddy, and the surrender paperwork. When I finished, she took off her glasses. Let me make sure I understand. Okay, your husband secretly tried to surrender property that belonged to you before the marriage. My eyebrows went up. Property? I know that sounds cold. Legally, pets are generally treated as property in North Carolina. I looked down. Rachel leaned forward. But emotionally, I understand he's family. Thank you. He also lied about a medical condition belonging to his sister to justify doing it. Yes. And now he wants you to come home. Yes. She put her glasses back on. That tracks. I almost laughed. Is that a legal term? No. That's a divorced woman term. It was the first time I laughed about anything connected to Evan. Then she became serious. Do you want a divorce? The question hit differently when a lawyer asked it. My parents hadn't asked. Sophie hadn't asked. Even Diane hadn't. Everyone had let me move at my own pace. I looked at Rachel. Yes, it hurt to say, but it didn't feel wrong. I want a divorce. She nodded. Then we work from there. The first week was mostly paperwork. Bank statements, credit cards, mortgage documents, retirement accounts, things that looked painfully ordinary for a marriage that no longer felt ordinary at all. Evan called repeatedly. I stopped answering after the second conversation. The first time, he cried. Not dramatically. That almost made it worse. Savannah, I know I messed up. I sat at my parents' kitchen table while Buddy slept under my chair. You did. I'm going to counseling. I hope you do. I made an appointment. That's good. He went quiet. Then, that's it? What do you want me to say? I want you to care. I closed my eyes. I do care. Doesn't sound like it. What would caring sound like? You coming home. There it was. His pain still came with instructions. Evan, Going back doesn't prove I care. Proves you're willing to work on this. I tried to work on this 6 months ago. He sighed. I know. You canceled counseling. I said I know, using Sophie as an excuse. Do we have to keep going over every mistake? I almost laughed. That quickly. Less than 3 minutes. Apology to irritation. You called me. I'm trying to fix my marriage. Our marriage. What? You keep saying my marriage. He was silent. I rubbed my forehead. Never mind. No, say it.
I'm tired.
So you're just done talking? I looked at Buddy. Yes. I hung up. The second conversation was worse. Evan called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered because I thought it might be Rachel's office. Savannah. My stomach tightened. Why are you calling me from another number? Because you don't answer mine. That should tell you something. Please don't hang up. I stayed silent. I heard you hired a lawyer. Yes. He exhaled. So this is real. Yes. I thought you were just angry. I am angry. Then wait until you're not. This isn't about being angry anymore. How can you say that? Because I don't trust you. You can learn to trust me again. Maybe. His voice lifted. Then why not try? Because maybe I don't want my life to become a test where I spend 5 years waiting to see whether you lie again. That's unfair. I laughed. He immediately got irritated. What's funny? You keep using that word. Because you're treating me like I cheated on you. I never said you cheated. But that's how you're acting. No. I lowered my voice. If you cheated once, at least I'd know what the lie was. He went quiet. I don't know how many lies there were. That's dramatic. There it is again. He groaned. Savannah, come on. No, I'm not some monster. I never called you one. You make me sound like one. No, I describe what you did. You decide how it sounds. He hung up on me. 10 minutes later, he texted. This is exactly why I couldn't talk to you. I stared at the message, then forwarded it to Sophie. She replied almost immediately. Impressive. He blamed you for him hanging up on you. I laughed so hard my mother came into the room. What? I showed her. Mom read it. Her mouth tightened. I always liked Evan. I know. That's what bothers me. I looked at her. She handed the phone back. He wasn't awful all the time. No, that would have been easier. She was right. Evan had remembered birthdays. He brought me coffee. He once drove 3 hours in the middle of the night when my father had chest pain. He could be generous, funny, attentive. That was what made the next few weeks confusing. A marriage didn't become fake just because it ended. Some memories were still good. The problem was I no longer knew which good moments existed because Evan wanted them and which existed because he wanted to avoid disappointing somebody. I was still trying to sort that out when Diane called. I have something for you. I hesitated. You don't need to bring anything. I know. She paused. I made a blueberry pie. Despite myself. I smiled. That sounds like bringing something. It's not a peace offering. We're not fighting. That's why it isn't a peace offering. I agreed to meet her. She came to my parents' house Sunday afternoon. She looked uncomfortable when Mom let her in. The two women had always been polite but distant. Now Diane stood there holding a pie like a nervous neighbor. Mom glanced at me. I'm taking Buddy for a walk. She didn't ask. She just gave us privacy. Diane watched her leave. Your mother is very good at that. At what? Knowing when to leave people alone. I smiled faintly. She learned after raising me. Diane set the pie down. Then she sat across from me. For a moment neither of us spoke. Finally she said, I owe you an apology. You already apologized. Not properly. I looked at her. She folded her hands. I believed Evan. That's normal. He's your son. No. Her mouth tightened. That explains it. It doesn't excuse everything. I stayed quiet. There were times I thought you were rude. I blinked. She gave me a small, embarrassed smile. I'm not going to lie now just because Evan did. Fair. You'd leave early. You stopped calling. You seemed tense every time I came over. I know why now. My throat tightened. Diane looked down. He would tell me. Savannah's tired. Don't stay too long. Or, she has a lot going on. So maybe don't call this week. I frowned. He told you that? For years. I rubbed my forehead. He told me you thought I didn't make enough effort with you. Her eyes widened. I thought you wanted less effort. We stared at each other. Then Diane laughed. Not because it was funny. Because there was nothing else to do. I spent 3 years trying not to bother you. I spent 3 years trying not to give you another reason to criticize me. Her smile disappeared. Savannah, I didn't criticize you nearly as much as you thought I did. I know. I did think the wedding flowers were expensive. I laughed. Apparently everyone did. Those flowers were ridiculous. They were beautiful. They were beautiful and ridiculous. For the first time, talking to my mother-in-law felt normal, not careful, not strategic. Just two women disagreeing about wedding flowers. Then she looked at my bare hand. Are you really divorcing him? Yes. Her eyes filled, but she nodded.
I'm sorry.
I know. I wish I could ask you to give him another chance. I stiffened slightly. She noticed. I'm not going to. I relaxed. Diane swallowed. If he changes, he needs to change because it's the right thing to do, not because you're waiting as a reward. That surprised me. Thank you. She nodded. Then her face crumpled slightly. I'm still his mother. I know. I love him. I know. I'm angry enough that those two things feel impossible to hold at the same time. I reached across the table and touched her hand. You don't have to choose. She looked at me. I'm not asking you to stop loving your son. Her eyes filled. You know, for 3 years I thought you didn't like me. I smiled sadly. For 3 years I thought you didn't like me. Turns out we were both wrong. About a lot of things. She squeezed my hand. That afternoon taught me something important. Divorcing Evan didn't require me to hate everyone connected to him. Maybe it didn't even require me to hate him. I just had to stop trusting him with my life. Sophie became harder to get rid of. 3 days after Diane's visit, she showed up at my parents' place and honked from the driveway. I walked outside. What are you doing? Get in. No. Yes. Where are we going? The shelter.
Is der daher?
Why? Because you look depressed. That's a terrible recruitment slogan. Get in. Savannah. Buddy barked from behind me. Sophie pointed at him. He can come too. That was how I ended up spending a Saturday afternoon at Mecklenburg County Animal Care with my soon-to-be ex-husband's sister. Watching Sophie there changed something. She wasn't guarded. She wasn't sarcastic every 3 seconds. She knelt in front of kennels and spoke softly to terrified dogs. She knew which animals needed space and which needed touch. At one point, she sat on the floor beside an older beagle named Walter who refused to eat. He came in after his owner died. She told me. Walter pressed himself against her knee. I watched her scratch behind his ears. You're good at this. She shrugged. I'm good at nursing too. Do you like nursing? Yes. She looked at Walter. But this is the thing I do when I need to remember why people don't completely suck. I laughed. That seems backwards. Dogs are better company. Agreed. She glanced at me. Why didn't you ever finish your vet assistant program? I stopped. What? Evan mentioned it once. My chest tightened. I started before we got married. So life happened. That's not an answer. I smiled. You really are his sister. Her face twisted. Take that back. I laughed. Then she nudged my shoe with hers. Seriously. I looked through the kennel gate. My dad had surgery. Okay. Then Evan and I moved. Okay. Then we got married. She waited. I sighed. And tuition was expensive. Did you want to quit? I didn't answer. Sophie's eyes narrowed. Savannah. No. Did Evan want you to quit? He never said that. What did he say? I thought about it. Maybe later. There's no rush. Do we really need another tuition payment right now? You already have a decent job. I swallowed. He said it could wait. Sophie's expression softened. And you believed him? Yes. How long were you supposed to wait? I stared at Walter. I don't know. That answer bothered me all night. Monday morning, I searched for veterinary assistant programs in Charlotte. I told myself I was just looking. Then I requested information. 2 days later, I filled out an application. When the confirmation email arrived, I stared at it for almost 5 minutes. Felt irresponsible, selfish, expensive. Then I realized every objection in my head sounded like Evan. I paid the enrollment deposit. I didn't ask anyone. That felt bigger than filing for divorce. The divorce itself became ugly almost immediately. Evan disputed furniture, savings, a television I didn't even want. Then Rachel called me one afternoon. I have something funny. That usually means it isn't funny. He wants to categorize Buddy's veterinary expenses as your individual discretionary spending. I stared at the phone. He what? His attorney included it in the proposed separation numbers. You're kidding. I wish. I laughed in disbelief. The same dog he tried to give away? The very one. I closed my eyes. Can he do that? He can ask. What happens? I say no. I smiled. I like you. I get that a lot during divorces. Robert apparently heard about it. I knew because he called me that night. I apologize for my son. You don't need to. I'm starting to think I do. You really don't. He sighed. I talked to him. My stomach tightened. I don't want you fighting with him because of me. It wasn't because of you. Robert's voice hardened. I asked him when he plans to stop acting like everything happening now is something being done to him. I didn't speak. He said you hired a lawyer. I did. He said you're taking half the savings. They're marital assets. I know. He said Sophie turned against him. I closed my eyes. Of course.
Rupert sighed.
I told him something. What? That losing you isn't something happening to him. He paused. He did this. My eyes burned. Thank you. You don't need my permission to leave my son. I know. I'm saying it anyway. The divorce papers were nearly ready 6 weeks later when Evan asked to see me. Rachel advised against meeting privately, so we met at a coffee shop in Ballantyne. He looked thinner, tired. For a second, seeing him hurt, this was still the man I had loved. Maybe part of me still did. He sat across from me. I've been seeing a therapist. I know. Sophie told you? No. You told me in 4 emails. His mouth twitched. I deserved that. I said nothing. He looked down. I know why I lie. I waited. I hate disappointing people. That's what you said before. No. He shook his head. I mean, I understand it better now. He rubbed his hands together. When someone wants something from me, I panic if I don't want the same thing. I watched him. So instead of saying no, I make it somebody else's fault. Yes. He gave a tired smile. You already figured that out. Yes. I'm trying to stop. I hope you do. His eyes lifted. There was hope in them. That was painful. Then maybe we could. No. He stopped. You didn't even let me finish. I know what you were going to ask. His jaw tightened slightly. Do you? Yes. I leaned back. You think changing means I should come back? I think if I actually change, maybe our marriage deserves another chance. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I shook my head. You don't get to practice becoming honest on me. His face fell. Savannah. I mean that. I'm doing the work. Good. Then what's the point? For you. He looked confused. The point is you become someone who doesn't do this anymore because that's who you want to be. I swallowed. Not because I'm waiting at the finish line. He stared down at the table. I love you. My chest hurt. I believe you. He looked up quickly. For the first time, I realized I meant it. He probably did love me, in the way he knew how. But love without honesty had made me question my own memories. That wasn't enough. I loved you too. Loved? I didn't answer. His eyes filled. So that's it. Yes. The final papers were signed 3 weeks later. I walked out of Rachel's office carrying a folder that weighed less than my laptop. It contained the legal end of my marriage. 3 years reduced to signatures. I expected to feel devastated. Instead, I felt tired. Then I heard a horn. Sophie was parked at the curb. Buddy's head was sticking out of the back window.
I walked over.
She lowered the passenger window. You done? Yes. Divorced? Yes. She nodded solemnly. Congratulations. Sorry. Whichever one people say. I laughed. Then opened the door. There was a coffee in the cup holder. For me? No. Buddy ordered it. I got in. Buddy shoved his head between the seats and licked my cheek. I pushed him away, laughing. Sophie started the car. I looked at her. You know this is weird, right? What? I divorced your brother and somehow kept you. She shrugged. Consider me part of the settlement. I laughed again. And that time, it didn't hurt afterward. For months, I had been asking myself which parts of my old life were real. My marriage had contained lies. That didn't mean every relationship inside it had been one. I had lost a husband, but somehow, in the wreckage, I had found a sister I never knew I had. And for the first time in years, the future wasn't something I was waiting for Evan to approve. It was already mine. 1 year after my divorce, Sophie dropped a moving box on my front porch and announced that she was never helping me move again. I looked at the box, then at her. Says towels. It lies. I laughed. You carried the books. You told me they were towels. I said bathroom stuff. You are officially worse than my brother. I pointed toward the driveway. Leave. Gladly. She didn't leave. Instead, she grabbed the coffee I had set on the porch railing and took a long sip. That's mine. Moving fee. Buddy came running around the side of the house with a tennis ball in his mouth. Sophie pointed at him. And he's no help. Buddy dropped the ball directly on her shoe. She looked down. See? I smiled. The house wasn't big. 2 bedrooms. A small kitchen. A back porch. And a fenced yard Buddy had inspected with the seriousness of a federal agent. It was mine. Not technically yet. The mortgage company had opinions about that. But my name was on every document. No husband. No joint account. No one saying we should wait 6 months because interest rates might change. No one asking whether his mother thought the neighborhood was too far away. I had toured 5 houses. I liked this one. I made an offer. That was it. It still surprised me how simple decisions could be when nobody was standing behind me inventing objections. Sophie sat down on the porch step. You're doing that thing again. What thing? Staring at your house like you're waiting for someone to tell you you're not allowed to have it. I frowned. I don't do that. She raised one eyebrow. You absolutely do. I'm admiring it. Sure.
I sat beside her.
Buddy pushed between us. Sophie scratched his neck. So, she said, how does it feel? To own 30 years of debt? To have your own place? I thought about it. Quiet. That's depressing. No. I smiled. Good quiet. She nodded like she understood. She probably did. A lot had changed in a year. Some things had changed faster than I expected. Others hadn't changed nearly enough. Evan and I had barely spoken after the divorce became final. First, he sent long emails. The kind that sounded like therapy homework. I recognized that I avoided accountability. I understand that my dishonesty damaged your sense of trust. I'm trying to learn how to tolerate disappointing people. I believed he was trying. That was the strange part. I didn't think he was pretending. Sophie told me he was still seeing a therapist. Diane said he had stopped using her as an excuse at work. Robert once joked that Evan had finally learned to say, no, I don't want to, without attaching another person's name to it. I was glad, truly, but being glad he was changing didn't make me want him back. That took me months to understand. People loved asking, not strangers, people who meant well. You don't think you could try again someday? He's getting help, right? You were married. There had to be something worth saving. There had been. That was the problem with the question. Something could be worth having once and still not be worth returning to. I stopped explaining after a while. My answer became, I hope Evan becomes a better man. Then, if someone waited for more, I added, for himself. That usually ended the conversation. Sophie had taken longer to forgive him. Maybe because siblings don't get the clean break divorce gives you. She loved him. She was furious with him. Sometimes both things happened in the same phone call. One night, 6 months after the divorce, she called me. He invited me to dinner. That sounds normal. He apologized again. That also sounds normal. He paid me back the $2,000. I sat up. What? Not because I asked. Did you take it? Obviously. I laughed. Good. He said it wasn't about whether I needed it now. He said he'd made me pay for his cowardice back then. I went quiet. That sounds like progress. Yeah. She didn't sound happy. Sophie. What? You're allowed to forgive him. I know. You don't have to stay angry for me. I'm not. You kind of are. She sighed. He made me hate you. No. Yes. He did. He lied to you. That's the same thing. It isn't. She went quiet. I chose my words carefully. You believed him because he was your brother. And you believed him because he was your husband. Exactly. So if I'm not going to spend the rest of my life blaming myself for believing someone I loved, I'm not going to blame you either. She was silent for a long moment. Then she said, I still reserve the right to call him an idiot. That seems healthy. Good. Sophie eventually started talking to Evan regularly again. Their relationship wasn't what it had been. Maybe that was a good thing. They argued more honestly now. A few months earlier, Sophie had called me immediately after a fight with him. He told me he doesn't want me bringing shelter dogs to his apartment. I waited. And? That's it. I started laughing. She laughed too. He just said it.
No allergy?
No. No fake landlord rule? No. No mysterious doctor? No. Wow. I know. What did you say? I told him he was boring. That's fair. And then I didn't bring the dog. I smiled. For most families, that conversation would have meant nothing. For us, it was practically a miracle. Sophie had changed too. She finished nursing school that spring. Diane cried at graduation. Robert took approximately 400 photos. I stood 3 rows behind them with Buddy's picture taped inside the congratulations card I gave her. 2 weeks later, Sophie told everyone she had accepted a job with a regional animal welfare nonprofit. Robert stared at her. I thought you were going to a hospital. I might someday. You went through nursing school and graduated. So now you're working with dogs and people. He rubbed his forehead. Diane kicked him under the table. Sophie grinned. The nonprofit coordinated community vaccination clinics, foster programs, emergency animal response, and volunteer training. Her nursing background actually helped. She trained volunteers in basic first aid and worked with outreach programs for elderly pet owners who struggled to access veterinary services. After her first week, she called me. I'm exhausted. You sound happy. I hate that you can tell. I know you too well now. That's unfortunate. My own change had been quieter. I went back to school. At 31 years old, I became a student again. The first day of my veterinary assistant program, I sat in my car for 10 minutes before going inside. I almost left. Not because I didn't want it, because I did. Too much. For years. Every time I had thought about going back, I heard the same phrases. Maybe later. Tuition is expensive. You already have a job. What's the rush? That morning, I realized none of those voices were actually mine. So I went inside. I loved it. Not every second. There were exams. Early mornings. Animals that bit. Owners who cried. Cleaning things nobody should ever have to identify. But I loved learning again. I loved knowing why an older dog's gait changed after surgery. I loved watching a frightened animal slowly trust a person. I loved the practical work of rehabilitation. Progress measured in inches. A dog standing for 5 seconds longer than last week. A senior Labrador climbing 2 steps after months of struggling. A terrier putting weight on an injured leg. Eventually, I started interning at a pet rehabilitation center outside Charlotte. My supervisor, Dr. Elena Ramirez, had no patience for self-doubt. The first time she caught me apologizing for asking too many questions, she stared at me. Savannah, yes, did anyone here tell you questions are annoying? No. Then stop arguing with people who aren't in the room. That sentence hit me harder than she intended. I laughed. She looked confused. What? Long story. Okay, ask your question. So I did. That became another habit I had to relearn. Asking. Directly. Not guessing. Not assuming. Not building entire relationships out of messages passed through someone else. Diane and I had learned the same thing. We didn't become best friends. I was grateful for that. It would have felt fake. She was still Evan's mother. Sometimes there were boundaries we both understood without saying them. She didn't tell me details about his dating life. I didn't ask. I didn't discuss my divorce regrets with her. She didn't defend him. But she called on my birthday. She sent me a Christmas card. Once every few months, we had coffee. The first time she came to the rehabilitation center, she stood watching me help a 12-year-old German shepherd with a mobility harness. When I finished, she smiled. You look happy. I am. She hesitated. I wish I had known you wanted to do this. I wiped my hands. I wish I'd talked about it more. You probably did. I looked at her. She gave me a sad smile. Just not to me. There was no point pretending that didn't hurt. I thought you'd think it was impractical. I might have. I laughed. She laughed too. Then she added, but I would have been wrong. That was probably the healthiest conversation we ever had. Not because we agreed, because neither of us needed Evan to tell the other what we meant. Robert was more awkward. He texted me on my birthday. Happy birthday, Savannah. Hope you and Buddy are doing well. I replied, thank you. We are. That was enough. At Christmas he mailed Buddy a ridiculous bag of expensive treats. Sophie texted me. Dad says those are not from him because he refuses to spend $27 on dog cookies. I sent back. Tell him Buddy appreciates the anonymous donor. She replied. He said shut up. there were still moments when the whole thing felt strange. I had divorced a man but somehow kept pieces of his family. First, I worried that meant I hadn't moved on properly. My therapist disagreed. You don't have to burn every bridge connected to a bad relationship. He's their son. Yes. Doesn't that make it unhealthy? Do they pressure you to reconcile? No. Do they carry messages for him? No. Do they disrespect your boundaries? No. Then maybe the relationship is with them now. That had been a new idea. Not everything needed to belong to Evan just because he introduced it into my life. My favorite coffee shop had been one he showed me. I still went. The blue armchair in my living room had been ours. Kept it. Sophie had been his sister. She became my friend. Some things survived because they were real. That didn't make the marriage real in the way I had believed. It just meant the lies hadn't contaminated everything. By late afternoon, most of my boxes were inside the new house. Sophie collapsed onto the porch. I'm done. You said that 3 hours ago. I mean emotionally. I handed her a fresh coffee. She accepted it. Buddy ran across the yard chasing the same tennis ball he had carried all day. Sophie watched him. Then she smiled. I still can't believe he tried to give that idiot away. Don't call my dog an idiot. He spent 10 minutes barking at his own reflection in the sliding door. He was protecting us. From Buddy? Exactly. She laughed. Then her expression changed. What? Nothing. That was definitely something. She took a sip of coffee. Can I ask you a weird question? Apparently. She looked out toward the yard. Do you regret marrying Evan? I didn't answer immediately. A year earlier, that question would have wrecked me. I would have thought about the wedding, the money, the time, the humiliation, the lies. I would have wanted to erase everything. Now the answer felt more complicated. I regret trusting him for as long as I did. Sophie nodded slowly. But? I looked at her. But I don't regret everything. Her eyebrows rose. Careful. That sounds emotionally mature. I don't like it. I smiled. I mean it. She waited. If I hadn't married him, I probably wouldn't know you. That's a terrible reason to marry somebody. It is. Please don't put that on a greeting card. I laughed. Then I looked back at Buddy. There's something else. What? I spent years thinking you were the problem. Sophie winced. Same. I thought you judged me. I thought you looked down on me. I thought you wanted Buddy gone. I thought you didn't want me at Thanksgiving. We both shook our heads. I said quietly, sometimes the person you think is your enemy is just another person who was lied to by the same man. Sophie stared at me for a second. Then her mouth twitched. That was annoyingly profound. I've had a year. Still annoying. We sat there for a moment. Then Sophie cleared her throat. There is one thing, though. I looked at her. What? I did think your wedding was too expensive. I stared at her. She kept a perfectly straight face. What? The champagne fountain? My mouth dropped open. You told me that was Evan twisting what you said. He did twist it. You said you only thought he shouldn't put the reception on a credit card. I also thought the champagne fountain was insane. I stared at her for 2 seconds. Then I started laughing. She grinned. It was ridiculous. It was beautiful. It was champagne pouring down glass shelves. It was classy. It looked like a casino buffet. You're awful. I'm honest.
I pointed her.
Get off my porch. No. Go home. I carried your fake towel box. Buddy suddenly dropped the wet tennis ball in her lap. Sophie screamed and jumped up. Oh, come on.
I left harder.
Buddy barked. She held the ball away from her clothes. I'm allergic. I froze dramatically. Oh my God. Severe reaction. You need an ambulance. Immediately. She threw the ball. Buddy raced after it. I looked at Sophie. 1 year earlier, I had believed she was a woman who wanted me out of her family. She had believed I thought she wasn't good enough to be part of mine. Neither of us had bothered to ask. That was the part one had to own. Evan had lied. But after him, I learned something about myself too. I never wanted to build another relationship out of assumptions. If I was angry, I would ask. If I was confused, I would ask. If somebody told me what another person supposedly thought of me, I would go to the source. Sounded simple. It had taken a ruined marriage to teach me. Sophie picked up her coffee again. You good? I looked at the house. At the boxes. At Buddy running through a yard that belonged to us. At the woman sitting beside me who had once been my imaginary enemy. Yeah, and I was. Not because Evan had suffered. Not because everyone had chosen me over him. Not because I had won some contest. I was good because I no longer needed my life to be explained through someone else. My marriage had taught me that losing one person didn't mean losing every relationship connected to him. It had taught me that love could be real and still not be enough. That forgiveness didn't require reconciliation. That someone changing didn't create an obligation to return. And most of all, it taught me that being wrong about one person didn't mean I had been wrong about everyone. For months after the divorce, I had thought I'd wasted 3 years. Eventually, I stopped calling them wasted. They had cost me something, but they had given me something too. A clearer voice, better boundaries, a career I should have chosen years earlier, a sister I never expected, and Buddy, still stubborn, still shedding everywhere, still requiring expensive dental cleanings, still absolutely worth it. Sophie nudged my shoulder. You're staring again. I'm thinking. Dangerous. I smiled. Buddy came running back with the ball. This time, I caught it before he could cover either of us in slobber. I threw it across the yard. He took off after it. Sophie lifted her coffee. To your ridiculously expensive dog. I lifted mine. To your devastating allergy. She laughed. And as Buddy ran back toward us, I realized I didn't need to erase my old life to begin a new one. I only needed to stop letting the wrong person tell me what it meant.